All right, we are beginning this particular session, and this is on essentially geopolitics and of the East Asian countries and the role of Bengal Basin and Bay of Bengal contacts. As I see in this in the schedule, we have 4 speakers, and there are a variety of issues, including irregular migration and the areas focusing on Sundarbans and a kind of overall comprehensive picture of the region that will talk about dynamics of Bay of Bengal, Asian geopolitics, and Bay of Bengal in Indo-Pacific geopolitics. So this is a kind of session that will talk about contemporary political situation and security issues. It would be, I think, very, very different from what we have been discussing so far. And it would talk about, I think, the national interest, foreign policy, and, issues of conflict and competition and security. So I won't, spend much time on this, speaking myself, because we are already running late. I would just request my speakers to take about 18 to 20 minutes, not more than that. All right, and then we will have all the presentations together, and then we will invite questions if any. So, without wasting time, I would request Dr. Shaurdeep Sen to make his presentation. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Majumdar. Given the trajectory of the program so far, I'm almost tempted to change the title of my presentation from Bay of Bengal in Indo-Pacific Geopolitics to Bay of Bengal Back to the Future. But given the fact that I'm talking about geopolitics, it is quite future-oriented, futuristic as a subject and as a discipline. And so before I go into the crux of my arguments in this presentation, let me just share a few words on geopolitics. This is especially for those who are unacquainted with the vast literature on the discipline. Now, geopolitics basically denotes the political ramifications of geography. It has some contingent and some universalist elements. And it links geography with peace and conflict as perhaps its primary causative factor. And geopolitics describes power dynamics and influence over space utilizing networks and frames like the sphere of influence, bloc, neighborhood to interpret global affairs. Most importantly, as I said before, it is future-oriented, providing insights into state behavior which are rooted in enduring interests. And beyond physical factors, nowadays, contemporary geopolitics views geography as shaped by competing narratives, vying for control. These narratives, often descriptive and generative, guide state actions, thereby leading to outcomes that may favor one state while disadvantaging another in the complex interplay of power and the geographical layout of lands and seas. Now, with this brief introduction to geopolitics, let me begin with my presentation. Now, I shall proffer 4 arguments across dedicated sections with regard to the Bay of Bengal in Indo-Pacific geopolitics. And you can, of course, refer to the map for your convenience. Now, my first argument is that the resurgence of state-centric geopolitics challenges optimistic narratives surrounding the 5th wave of globalization, refuting thereby the expectation of a geocentric global politics that pivots on free markets and open lines of communications, softens the costs. In this era of strategic turbulence, nations prioritize rational planning to safeguard their interests that often paradoxically snowball into the weaponization of the once glorified ways of economic interconnectedness. interconnectedness or interdependence, such as interaction, connectivity, and access. This is particularly evident in the maritime domain. As you can see in the map, the oceans, which were traditionally considered free and accessible in liberal narratives, have been securitized and militarized, as exemplified most starkly by the Indian Ocean's transformation since 2007. Initially, responding to maritime piracy, militarization has evolved into a semi-permanent geopolitical presence with Chinese and Indian nuclear power submarines further exacerbating tensions. The United States, aiming to control or sort of counter China, Chinese influence, has expanded its naval presence in the IOR, potentially triggering alliances and conflicts. Now, projections indicate a continued and more entrenched militarization, with major powers increasing naval presence, controlling strategic bases, and deploying advanced technologies for future resource wars. Now, as you can see in the map, it talks of choke points and trade routes. Concomitant with oceanic militarization is the weaponization of supply chains, choke points, and multilateral initiatives, driven partly by the negative ramifications of American hegemony, and then, of course, currently because of the aggressive rise of China. China, as a leading practitioner of geoeconomics, utilizes economic factors for geopolitical competition. Moreover, the ever-given incident in the Suez Canal has brought to our notice the vulnerability of major trade routes along choke points that may be leveraged by states to potentially coerce adversaries into specific forms of behavior. Not least, China's maritime Silk Route projects in the Indo-Pacific involve ports with dual-use functionality serving both civilian and military purposes, contributing to intelligence gathering and various belligerent operations. This underscores the multifaceted nature of contemporary geopolitical dynamics, shaped by militarization, economic competition, and strategic positioning in maritime spaces. Now, insofar as the West, Japan, and India are concerned, they have variously responded to the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, and its attendant MSR, or Maritime Silk Road, through bolstering the narrative of the free and open Indo-Pacific, FOIP, and also by reviving the Quad, which is the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. India and Southeast Asian states have also reinvigorated the BIMSTEC towards similar ends, and to provide protection against Chinese aggression in the Indo-Pacific, there has also been recently the formation of the AUKUS map. These developments, however, have not necessarily enunciated a coherent policy for the Indo-Pacific. Instead, the dialectic of the MSR with the FOIP has only cemented the maritime security dilemma as a lasting bequest of geostrategic competition upon the Indo-Pacific. Now, this brings me to my second argument regarding the Indo-Pacific. The Indo-Pacific, the region that you can see in the map, surpassing the Atlantic in strategic importance, has become the focal point of global geostrategic competition, with the Bay of Bengal marked in the map, as you can see, playing a crucial role therein. And although the maritime is one, particularly as a geopolitical entity, the world's oceans are at once connected and separate. Now, as you can see, this is the conceptual map and, of course, the physical map of the Indo-Pacific region. During the past, the Indo-Pacific has emerged as a conceptual framework transcending the mental division between the Indian Ocean region and the Asia-Pacific region. This transformation coincided with the Indian Ocean becoming a hub for economic exploration and global connectivity activities. The Indo-Pacific concept signifies the growing economic and security interdependence of states along the Asian littorals, from, of course, the Korean Peninsula in the east to the Persian Gulf in the west. India's expanding economic and strategic interest in the Indo-Pacific has entailed its adoption of the Indo-Pacific outlook, and the rise of China, particularly its MSR extending close to India's territorial waters in the Bay of Bengal, has put India and China also on a collision course. Now, consequently, because of this, India's Indo-Pacific vision of 2018 has broadened the geopolitical space from the shores of Africa to the shores of the Americas, envisioning a free, open, and rules-based region
And since 2013, because of this shift, the Bay of Bengal has also shifted from the periphery to the center of the broader Indo-Pacific region, because it serves as a coherent geopolitical region, physically connecting the Indian and Pacific Oceans and acting as an economic hub between the Indian Ocean economic region or system and the East Asian economic system. The Bay has also of late become an entrenched theatre of geostrategic competition, attracting attention from littoral and extra-regional states. Its geoeconomic significance, encompassing trade volume, infrastructure, connectivity, along with geopolitical importance in the domestic politics of South and East Asian states, have generated intertwined narratives of challenges and opportunities within the larger Indo-Pacific region. And this brings me to my third argument. That is, since the geopolitics of the Bay shall continue to transform in tune with changes in the larger Indo-Pacific region and vice versa, there are certain transactional narratives that will remain intact in the future. Such narratives have implications for the great game in the Bay. Now, transactional narratives surrounding the Bay of Bengal oscillate between themes of interaction and connectivity on the one hand, and those of competition and caution among states. The key players in the region's geopolitical landscape are India, China, South and East Asian states, Australia, and Japan, alongside UK, US, and France as the extra-regional participants. India's geostrategic position along the Bay underscores narratives of interaction and connectivity. With the largest land border and a significant share of territorial waters, India perceives the Bay as South Asia's gateway to East Asia, as you can see in the map, thereby prompting a shift in strategic focus from the West to the Far East and of course then to the Western Pacific regions. The Bay in this regard holds paramount importance for India because it is the contact point of India's Act East policy with its larger neighborhood first policy. And initiatives like the BIMSTEC reflects the region's recognition as a self-determining geostrategic arena, and India's involvement in the BIMSTEC's shared security infrastructure development, including disaster management, counterterrorism, and energy, align well with its ambition of becoming the net security provider in the Indo-Pacific in future. India's strategic engagements in the Bay also encompass initiatives like the Project Mosam and the Mission Sagar, which emphasize security and economic cooperation. These efforts, along with the BIMSTEC, have the potential to foster the security community among the Bay littorals, with, of course, the add-on advantage of safeguarding India's maritime interests in the region. And if you look at this, then such programs can be put into context. This is China's proposed 21st century maritime Silk Road. If not anything, then focus on the blue line. That will just speak for itself. So, despite these regional initiatives, the prospects of regionalism's failure persists despite optimism, as states engaged in regional integration prioritize national interests over shared visions which snowball towards the creation of zero-sum narratives. Not just narratives of interaction and connectivity, but zero-sum narratives. Ergo, an admixture of competing futuristic visions and particularistic national interests engender zero-sum narratives, whereby plurilateralism or bilateralism often supersede multilateral regionalism. Moreover, the Bay also reveals a set of challenges to the freedom of navigation and maritime security, with changing power dynamics largely pivoting upon the rise of China and the concomitant threat perceptions of South and East Asian states, as you can see, because of the 21st century maritime Silk Road in the map. So, competitive multilateralism in the region involves overlapping memberships and sectors of cooperation, as exemplified by the BIMSTEC on the one hand, it's the SARC on the other hand, or as exemplified by the Mekong-Ganga cooperation on the one hand, the BIMSTEC, SARC, IORA, what have you, with minimal multilateralism also hindering operational success. China's BRI, including the proposed MSR, also aims to bind South Asia, especially the Bay, to its Chinese dream, fueling competition and bilateral approaches over multilateral frameworks. Now, the resultant scramble for connectivity in the Bay works to the detriment of multilateralism, fomenting instead a spirit among the Bay littorals for leveraging bilateral channels of development within multilateral frameworks. And this example of Myanmar is perhaps the most pertinent, where you have out here the Chop Chao and here the Sitwe. The Sitwe is under the Kaladan Multimodal Transit Transport Project of India, and the Chop Chao is under the CMEC, or the China-Myanmar Economic Corridor. And these are competing examples of bilateralism, one with China and one with India, as far as Myanmar is concerned. Now, Maldives also, the trajectory in which it is going now, it may fall into a similar pattern of competing bilateralism or a debt crisis largely engineered by China and its maritime Silk Road. Now, there are also concerns about the BRI security ramifications and debt trap affecting countries such as Sri Lanka. The Hambantota port, we are all aware of the example, and now, of course, Nepal. Although it's not a Bay littoral, its Pokhara airport is now on the verge of being taken over by the Chinese. Now, further east here, you can say, port, resort, and defense-grade airstrip development in Cambodia offer another example of Beijing translating its economic influence into military use. Now, this is another important map here. To circumvent its, what did I just do? To circumvent its Malacca dilemma. This is the Malacca, Strait of Malacca, right? This is the present Chinese trade route through the South China Sea, then through the Strait of Malacca to the Indian Ocean, through the Bay. Now, in order to circumvent this Malacca dilemma, where Chinese ships have to move through this very narrow Strait of Malacca, China has been instigating Thailand to expedite the construction of the favored Kra Canal, right? A waterway which is envisaged to pass through the Kra Isthmus. And China is egging Thailand to expedite this through various loan offers under BRI schemes. Now, although this project has not taken off because of plethora of geopolitical reasons, most importantly because if you make this canal, you will have to split Thailand into two parts. If it ever materializes, it shall greatly benefit China while negatively impacting India's island exclaves in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands here. The proposed Kra Canal is therefore indicative of the perpetual turbulence of the Bay of Bengal triggered by strategic competition. Given competing national interests, the very ideas of connectivity, interaction, and access have been problematized. This has snowballed further in the wake of the pandemic, whereby defying the sway of globalization, states have become much more insular. And since the pandemic, the risks associated with the BRI have also become starker, and its stock has fallen, has begun to fall. And this is ostensible from the dip in capital exports, construction contracts, and the disastrous consequences of the Hills Silk Road. Not least, Beijing's involvement in the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, that is the RCEP, the FTA for the Indo-Pacific region, is also likely to be affected due to its unpopularity among the Asia-Pacific states. Now, this brings me to my last argument, and I would keep this map because it will help. Now, my last argument is, as it is imperative for China to continue to access the Indo-Pacific through the Bay of Bengal, nominally for meeting burgeoning energy needs, Beijing maintains its regional assertiveness through an admixture of persuasion and coercion. These factors have entailed a set of challenges for India and cement the future of zero-sum narratives of the Bay, thereby necessitating strong strategic responses from India to fend off its chief antagonist therein. Now, in all likelihood, therefore, the strategic futures of the Bay of Bengal shall be informed by an admixture of the security dilemma and the cooperation dilemma. For the ostensible durability of zero-sum narratives, such narratives largely emanate from entrenched Sino-Indian competition, underscored by the United States of America's lasting influence in the region. In the early 2000s, there were competing narratives of the String of Pearls,
denoting encirclement of India through Chinese port development and control in the Indian Ocean region, and the consequent necklace of diamonds, which was India's loose narrative response, if not a strategy or a policy. Essentially an American narrative. The string was perceived by Washington and New Delhi as a threat to the freedom of navigation. These navigations, however, have been superseded by, of course, the 21st century maritime Silk Route and India's counterforeign coalitions through the Quad. Now, as Beijing's aggressive wolf warrior style of diplomacy began to unravel in the Asia Pacific, not least India's profile consequently grew higher, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi described the Quad as the Asian NATO. He said that the Americans had been using their global clout over regional allies like India and staging a posture of 5-4-3-2 against China, or in order to contain China, where 5 refers to the Five Eyes intelligence sharing network, 4 refers to the Quad, 3 refers to the AUKUS, and 2 the various bilateral defense agreements that the Americans have with Asian states like India and Japan. Right? Now, these accusations despite heavy economic interdependence, right? Frequent brinkmanship and crisscrossing naval footprints in the Bay of Bengal not only exacerbate the Sino-Indian security dilemma, but also engender the mutual cooperation dilemma. Now, the cooperation dilemma denotes the willingness to cooperate for economic prosperity, but the tendency to compete for securing legitimate spheres of influence. Now, lastly, what strategies do India possess in order to establish its preponderance over the Bay of Bengal? Since 2014, India has aimed to establish a security structure in the Indo-Pacific by combining elements of cooperative security, the Asian concert, and the balance of power systems. To maintain preeminence in the Bay, India must nurture existing strategic partnerships, engage in multilateral dialogues, extend defense lines of credit as it has to Vietnam and Bangladesh, bolster infrastructure development in South and East Asian states. With the decline of BRI and China's RCEP stock also in decline, India has an opportunity to reinforce its narrative through involvement in the BIMSTEC security framework, as well as to prevent the spillover effect of the People's Liberation Army Navy's numerical superiority east of the Andamans over or onto the Bay of Bengal. Now, as the maritime becomes, as the Bay becomes increasingly central to the Indo-Pacific, it shall serve as a testing ground for India's maritime capability enhancement plan and diplomatic outreach. India's strong naval presence in the Bay positions it to lead an Asian concert with the Bay as its epicenter. As such a concert cannot function by discounting China, the Americans and the Indians have variously deployed the strategy of congagement towards China. Congagement in strategic studies is a portmanteau strategy of simultaneous containment and engagement. This has been practiced towards China by encouraging its participation in global governance while countering its maritime ambitions through various alliances. Yes. Lastly, the operational capability of the Indian Navy and the strategic significance of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands are pivotal for congagement strategies, also for reinforcing India's maritime security posture in the Bay. The islands serve as India's springboard into the Pacific and shall continue to pose a dilemma for China's maritime routes, even if the proposed Prague Canal materializes. As you can see, a strong ANC here would only mean that through the Prague route, Chinese ships would come to the eastern seaboard of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So India's modernization of the Andaman and Nicobar Tri-Service Command, despite initial challenges, underscores its intent to play a contributory role in the Bay and project power from its exclaves. Naval modernization efforts and strategic installations in the Bay, including missile defense systems and multinational maritime exercises such as Milan and Malabar, demonstrate India's commitment to safeguard maritime interests and securing sea lines of communication in the Bay of Bengal. Now, in the ultimate analysis, and I will stop with that, as India's augmented operational and strategic interventions in the Bay shall be perceived negatively by China, the Indian leadership would do well to be wary of countervailing naval buildup, especially since Beijing's long-term plans entail the establishment of a unipolar Asia with the concomitant subjugation of India and Japan.
as this element of Chinese grand strategy would trigger commensurate Indian response, the strategic futures of the Bay, as far as I am concerned, would be anything but peaceful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shiv. Don't make us nervous about it, but the idea is that China is also somewhat apprehensive. You know, when you talk about this Andaman Nicobar Island Sea there and INS Barge, in fact, Tri-Service Command, and China says India has already imposed an iron curtain of this particular area. And that is why the only risk is both the countries are actually alleging each other that they are out for control in this particular region, and that might lead to some kind of conflict. Anyway, thank you very much for your nice presentation on this Indo-Pacific geopolitics, and we have Bengal being a part of that. Shagota Sharkan. Yeah, please.
Good evening, everyone. So, my topic is irregular migration and security concerns in the Bay of Bengal region. The geopolitics of Asia mainly centers around the Bay of Bengal region because of the enhancing trade bonds that is developing through the region, and it is a very vital maritime zone because it is connecting some vital sea routes, and that is why it is the priority for all the states located across the region to secure the sea lanes of communication. So before going into further details, I would like to focus on the geostrategic location of the Bay of Bengal. As you can see that the Bay of Bengal region mainly lies in the northern stretch of the Indian Ocean region, and it stretches from Sri Lanka, eastern coast of India in the west, connecting Bangladesh in the north, Thailand, Malaysia in the east, extending up to the northern coast of Sumatra in Indonesia. So the most important problem that the countries in the Bay of Bengal is suffering from is the problem of the irregular maritime migration, and I would just be focusing on the Rohingya crisis. And I will not much elaborate on this slide, I will just give a very short background of the crisis. The crisis traced its origins since the pre-colonial times, and when Burma was under the colonial rule of Britain, the Britishers throughout have followed the policy of divide and rule, and the Burmese government sided with the Japanese in order to end the British colonial rule. But still, the few minority communities, including Rohingyas, they were throughout loyal to the Britishers, and from that time onwards, Burmese politics was characterized by divided loyalties and ethnic animosities among the communities. With the end of the colonial rule in 1947, the Burmese nation-making process started, but it was a very complicated one, and the Burmese elites were also of divided opinion. And with the assassination of Aung San in 1947, the process became more complicated, and taking the advantage of the weakness of the civilian administration, military started playing an important role, and militaries started dominating the nation-making process, and a uniform Burmese identity was was imposed upon the common Burmese population, which was very much marginalizing for the minority communities. And ultimately, we have seen in 1962 with the military coup, the situation became much more restrictive. And the Burmese citizenship laws were very much restrictive for the Rohingyas. They were not given constitutional recognition, so they were deprived of constitutional rights. Even though citizenship laws were amended, but still very little scope was there for the Rohingyas to get citizenship. In 1982, when the citizenship laws were amended and citizens were categorized and were given color-coded identity cards, there also we have seen the Rohingyas hardly have any opportunity to or any chance, rather the scope to get citizenship in near future. And the entire process of the nation making, the very significant role was played by the Buddhist monks. The 969 movement, Mahatma movement, we have seen throughout the Buddhist monk has spread Islamophobia. The speeches were very anti-Muslim in nature and which provoked the process of ethnic cleansing of the Rohingyas, and the Rohingyas were forcefully persecuted from Myanmar. And the entire nation-making process was very much dominated by the Burmese military. So as the ethnic cleansing was becoming more intense, the people had hardly any option rather than undergoing the life-risking voyages in order to find some safer places, and that has given rise to national security concerns. And as the countries located across the Bay of Bengal regions were receiving the wave of migrants, the navies and the coast guards were raised to alarm, and the security concerns that were raised, I have just pointed a few. First is the illegal infiltration of the non-citizen elements that was very much threatful for the national securities, and that has disrupted the demographic character of the state, and it was becoming very difficult for the states to keep a track of the asylum seekers. Apart from that, it has created immense socio-economic pressure over the states, and that is why none of the states were ready to provide full citizenship to the Rohingyas. Though we have seen that Bangladesh government has a very human attitude throughout, and because of this Muslim-friendly environment and easy accessibility, Rohingyas has mainly chosen Bangladesh to migrate. Bangladesh also has refugee relief and rehabilitation commission under the Ministry of Defense to look after the refugee issues and so that they can be repatriated. But still, they were also not ready to provide them full citizenship. In 2012, a wave of refugees also entered India. They were infiltrated into the northeastern states of India. That created tremendous local resentment because local people accused that Rohingyas were grabbing job opportunities, they are occupying lands and associated with criminal activities. So due to the socio-economic pressure and in order to prioritize national security, the states were unable to provide citizenship to them. Apart from that, another important factor is the Rohingyas were accused to have extremist linkages. When the ethnic cleansing was becoming more and more intense, the militant Rohingya organizations like Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army was formed, which is accused of conducting different insurgent activities. And it is alleged that they are having linkages with international terrorist organizations like IS and Al-Qaeda. In 2017, ISIS has declared that it is going to have branches in Southeast Asian countries. Al-Qaeda in 2007 has also declared that it is going to plan revenge against Myanmar government for conducting these anti-Muslim activities. So that has also created a pressure over the countries for not giving refuge to the Rohingyas, and that is why that also has had put the Sheikh Hasina administration into tremendous security dilemma whether to provide them the refuge or not. In India also, in Bardwan, a blast took place and a Rohingya boy named Mohammed Khalid was accused of being associated with the blast, and it is alleged that he is trained by the Talibani organizations. So that is why the countries, many countries are opting the path of pushback policy. That means when the boats are reaching the coast, they are not allowed to enter and they are pushed back. So that the pushback policies the countries are adopting mainly for the purpose of protecting their national security. But if I consider from the point of view of the migrant, after undergoing such a hazardous life-risking journey, it becomes very inhuman to them to give such treatment, and that is why throughout the crisis there was utter human rights violation for the Rohingyas. So on one hand, if I consider from the perspective of the states, no doubt they will be prioritizing their national security. On the other hand, there is also the question of human security, which is under geopolitics. First, the tortures of the Tatmadaw, that is Burmese army, and the Burmese security force, that is Nasaka. And as the Rohingyas are deprived of the citizenships, they are not protected by the constitutional rights. So, and they are also not protected by the labor law. So the Rohingyas were subjected to unpaid works. They were made to work for hours. They are not given food. They are not given money. And also the Rohingya villages were targeted. In fact, Tatmadaw used to have bases in the Rohingya religions for the surveillance purpose, and that used to instill fear among the population. Their lands were taken, their properties were taken, they were evicted, their villages were targeted, and the most vulnerable were the women, because women had to sustain rape, gang rape even, and post-rape body mutilation. And even I have come across the narratives where I have seen that women were raped, and after the post-rape body mutilation they are dumped into the sea water. So the maritime security is tremendously under threat. And so they hardly had the option, rather than undergoing this hazardous life-risking voyages where they have to sail for days and months without food, without water. Sometimes boats are overcrowded, they get sound. Not only that, as they have to stay for months without medical treatment, some people die out of hunger, out of diseases. So that is also very inhuman. And if I consider the condition of the refugee camps were also overcrowded one. The shabby huts, overcrowded one, hardly having proper supply of drinking water and sanitation facilities, and sometimes the food supplies were cut short due to the lack of funds, and so sustained starvation leads to malnutrition among the Rohingya children. Rohingya children are hardly vaccinated, and women also have to suffer from sexually transmitted diseases. They have to undergo unsafe categories. So for years and years they have to stay under unhygienic living conditions. And taking the advantage of their helplessness, they fall prey to the human trafficking rackets, where we have seen that those who were associated with the human trafficking rackets, they used to give false hope to the Rohingya people that they will be having a safe life, where there will be proper food, there will be proper employment, and thus a huge amount of money are also taken from them, but they are not transported where they are supposed to be transported, and rather they fall prey to the human trafficking rackets. Another kind of criminal activities is that, when women are mainly are the soft target, that is sex rackets and prostitution. Many cases women were fall prey to sex rackets. They are forcefully made to work as prostitutes. Sometimes they voluntarily have to do in order to sustain I have also in my paper mentioned about the narratives of a woman having 2 children. She was abandoned by her husband, where she had no option rather than to opt for prostitution in order to feed her children. Apart from prostitution, women also fall prey to the marriage brokers. In my paper, I have mentioned a narrative of a girl who was supposed to travel to Malaysia to unite with her family, but in course of her journey, she had fallen prey to a marriage broker where she was forcefully married in exchange of money, and now she is having a very abusive relationship with her husband. So these are the few, I have just pointed out few human security concerns side by side with the national security concern. But it is very much difficult to find any durable solution to the problem. Till now, any durable and permanent solution is has hardly been achieved. And but the states are trying. There are international refugee laws like 1951 refugee laws and 1967 protocol, which are looking after to protect the refugees. Apart from that, United Nations Convention on Law of Sea, Article 98(1) and 98(2) has mentioned about that the states must conduct rescue operation to help the people who are sea stuck, and the states must have the ability to promptly react to rescue the sea stuck people and must provide refuge to them. The international organizations like UNHCR and International Organization of Migration, even ODC, they are trying to work out and make the states aware of their humanitarian commitment apart from prioritizing on their national security. In the multilateral platforms like ASEAN, the Rohingya crisis is getting discussed, but the problem lies in the fact that there is a loophole of international law that as the countries, as many states are not the signatories of the conventions like 1951 conventions, like 1967 protocols, that is why it is not compulsory for them to abide by the provisions which are there. So, in my paper, I have tried to point out the two phases of security, two contrasting and two quite opposite sides of security. So the Bay of Bengal region is still suffering from tremendous security dilemma. Thank you.
Thank you, Shagunda, for your paper and for being well with the time. I will just simply, comment on this particular paper in the sense that we will talk about international organization or international platforms. These days, they champion a particular right, that is right to remain within your country. That means that please do not cross the border, whatever happens, stay within your country and do not come to our places, do not disturb us. And for that particular right to remain, everybody will be very supportive to pass this kind of a law. And if you come up with this kind of a law at the international level, I don't think that these problems should be resolved. It's very difficult because even Bangladesh's attitude is there are all kinds of opposition to Rohingya refugees right now. And in Cox's Bazar area, there is Teknaf and Ukhia. In these regions, they would say there has been huge environmental efforts, forest cover and things like that. You can understand because of the settlement of the peoples. So, it's a very, I agree with you, it's a very serious issue. And I don't think that the international community has really had the will of the world with them to solve this particular issue. Anyway, I don't know what will be the solution. Thank you for your